Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this video. I hope you all are doing well. My name is David, and what we're going to be talking about in today's video is discovery over the House of Zoologist. Got my samples over here, been wearing them, and I'm ready to give my feedback over them. Now I will say this is part 1 out of 2, so keep your eye out on the channel for part 2. And it's been a really enjoyable time discovering a new house, and I can't wait to try out new houses throughout this whole year. It's an exciting thing. One part I really enjoy of this hobby is finding diamond in the rough fragrances, or fragrances I didn't think I would enjoy, but now I do. So it's been fun for sure. Before we start this video though, let me know in the comments down below, what is your favorite fragrance from the House of Zoologist and why? I'll be very curious to hear from you all which one is your favorite, because they do have a lot of animals in the library, I will say. And it's kind of funny how they inspire their stuff after animals. It paints that picture in your head kind of when you spray on the fragrance. You're like, oh yeah, this kind of can remind me of a camel, for prime example. So make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. We make fragrance and fitness videos over on this channel and would love to have you part of this community. Now, I will be right back after the intro. Alright, so first one on the list here, we are going to be talking about Snowy Owl. So this is the first one. And before we hop into the notes, I just want to mention two things. The first one, all these fragrances here from the House of Zoologist are extrait de parfums. So basically, longevity on all these are excellent in my opinion from my wearing experiences and testing these over the last few weeks. So just wanted to get that out of the way. I'll mention about performance on each of them because performance is different, but longevity is very good with all these fragrances from the house. And if you're interested in any fragrance, do the smart thing. Make sure to sample. Your wallet will thank you for that for sure. And I've been really trying to do that this year, buy more samples, see what I really like to add to the collection, because I'm at that point in collecting fragrances or getting fragrances that I just want to get the samples, try it out, and then be like, hey, if this is really good, I might budge and buy a bottle. But going back to Snowy Owl here, let's get into some notes. So basically in the top, you got a snowy accord, lily of valley, mint, coconut. And then in the heart, you got iris, snowdrop, white rose. You also got frankincense and you got gabardine. And in the base, you got ambrette, cedar, civet, musk, oak moss, tonka bean, and vanilla here. And I will say, sometimes they won't list it in all of the fragrances here from the house, but with Zoologist, I feel a lot of, actually all their fragrances when I was testing have some form of animalic tone. So this lists civet and musk, and sometimes they're not listed, but I feel like in the DNA here from all the fragrances, it's kind of ramped up in some and it's kind of drawn back from a few, for prime example. So that kind of musky, animalic kind of tones in the fragrance. Sometimes it's going to be ramped up, sometimes it's going to be ramped back, but at least to my nose, I can kind of smell it throughout the DNA of the House of Zoologist here. And with this fragrance, this was like a luxury coconut lotion. In my opinion, it leaned more feminine. This would be one I would want to smell on a lady, not myself. Overall, but it did give me the soft kind of vibes of snow, which was kind of surprising. Basically, with this fragrance, it was just a big coconut bomb to me. I did get that lily of the valley, so if I had to give it some accords, this would be sweet, creamy, coconut type fragrance for me overall. I didn't really get any of that mint in the opening, and this is floral as well with a little iris and the lily of the valley, but the main two players to my nose was that musk and the far dry down, and also the coconut and the florals, the iris and the lily of the valley. But this one, I would say, projection-wise, it was about 2 to 3 feet the first, I want to say 2 to 3 hours, and then after that, it kind of rained back a little bit more, 1 to 2 feet overall. This one here, it was okay. It's not my taste. So I'm going to have to give it about a 5.2 out of 10. I wouldn't wear this probably again, just because as of now, for me, it would be something I would want to smell on a lady. I might give it to my mom to try out, but the best way I can describe this one is luxurious coconut oil or lotion, whatever you want to do, but it did have a soft aspect. So what I mean by that is it's kind of snowy outside right now, and kind of putting your hand in snow. That's what it reminded me of with this fragrance, is kind of putting your hand in snow, having the soft kind of feel to it once you put it in at first. And it did kind of, when the fragrance was drying down, had like a damp aspect as well, which is very interesting to my nose. But overall, this was a luxurious, like I mentioned, coconut lotion or oil, and definitely something that leans more feminine to my nose. So Snowy Owl, it's okay. It's not the worst, not the best from the house, but overall, glad to try it out finally. Now, next one is Rhinoceros, Why All My Samples Fall Down. So let me pick those up real quick, and we will go from there. And I'll just lay those there for the time being. But we got Rhinoceros here. This one was one that I did not buy. So I did not get this one. They gave it to me, a free sample per se, and I was very surprised by this one here. It actually turned out to be one of my favorites from the house. And this one, some notes in it. You got pink pepper, whiskey, coffee, rum, basil. In the heart, you got liver, incense, tobacco, ylang-ylang. And in the base, you got some oud, patchouli, oak moss, and amber. And this fragrance, when I first sprayed it on, I thought I was going to absolutely hate it. All I was smelling was the basil, and I was like, uh-oh, here we go. Very bitter. But when this took about 5 or 10 minutes after that initial spray, this one started blossoming off my skin, and it was really enjoyable. I started getting a lot of coffee. And the coffee here is a burnt coffee. So what I mean by that is a coffee bean, like a roasted coffee bean. So kind of a little burnt aspect to it, but it was more of that roasted coffee bean. And then also, too, it had a refreshing aspect from that rum and whiskey, kind of like when you take a drink and it's got the ice cube in there. You take, like, refreshing in that way, per se, you know, taking that drink. And also, too, when this was drying down more and more, kind of through the mid and the dry down, that coffee was still there. I was getting more of the smoky nuance. I was getting that leather, that tobacco in this as well, and the oud was starting to pop up, patchouli. And this one was, in my opinion, a smoky, resinous, woody type scent too, with coffee as well. Coffee is a main player in here, and I really enjoy my coffee fragrances, and that little boozy aspect was a nice twist to it. And then also, of course, leather. I can't forget about that leather accord. It was strong in this one here. And for longevity, no, excuse me, we already talked about longevity. For performance here, this one lasted, or projected off my skin for about, I'd probably say, going on 5 to 6 hours. The projection was very strong. I would say 3 to 4 feet. This was one I was getting wafts of throughout the day when I was wearing it. It wasn't something that was constantly there, but I was getting a lot of wafts when I was smelling this one in the air. And for this one smells better in the air than it does up close to the skin, in my opinion. I was really enjoying smelling it when I was walking around, but when I put my nose up close, I was like, I don't know about that. But with that leather accord, it really did remind me of like looking at a picture of a rhinoceros, and it put me in that mindset of a rhino overall. So this one, for my rating, I'm going to have to give it about I want to give it an 8.5 out of 10. That's how much I like this one. And it's kind of funny because this one was not on my radar until they included the free sample. So Rhinoceros, definitely want to give it more wears before I make a final verdict. But as of now, it's an 8.5 out of 10. Might get a full bottle. So, alrighty, let's put that one right there. Hopefully they don't fall down this time. And next one we are going to be talking about is King Cobra here. So this is a new one from the house. I think it just came out recently, and this one was kind of a letdown for me, I will say. So some notes in this: you got petitgrain, mandarin, fig leaf. You got ganja accord, and then you got Pamaleo. Hopefully I pronounced that right. And then you got black tea, cumin, leather, soil accord, and then in the base you got incense, amber, moss, patchouli, and vetiver. Now, I will say with this fragrance, the best way I can describe it, lemongrass. That's what I was getting to my nose. It reminded me of a garden snake in the garden, slithering around in grass, but the grass was a lemongrass. That's what this fragrance really put my mindset to. And very interested by that. I was not expecting, I was kind of expecting like a deep, dark resinous, kind of like a rattlesnake per se, or a king cobra like out in the desert. That's what I was thinking of, but instead I got a little garden snake slithering around in that lemongrass. And this is a very bitter fragrance, I will say, throughout the whole lifespan of it. A lot of bitterness, green, earthy, resinous too as well. And to my nose, I was getting a lot of that soil accord to this. I wasn't getting any of that mandarin. It had, a lot of I wasn't getting that. I was getting green, earthy, resinous, and grass. I guess if you want to count grass as an accord, that's what I was getting with this. And overall, the performance on here was basically, I'd say 2 feet the first 2 hours, 3 hours for me, and then it kind of got more close to the skin. And at first, I was mainly just getting, in that opening, I was just getting, I guess, the Polomeo, I guess you would pronounce it, and the ganja accord possibly in the petitgrain. I was getting mostly that. I wasn't really getting any of the tea or the leather in this one too, which was very surprising to my nose. But overall, I would say this scent for me was about a 6.2 out of 10. So, like I mentioned before with Snowy Owl, not the worst, not the best from the house, but definitely I do not want to give this more wears, which is a bummer. I was expecting a lot more from this. I was expecting a King Cobra, and I got a garden snake from this, all right? So, King Cobra, next one on here. And then we got Rabbit coming up. So there it is, Rabbit here. Let's hop into some accords of Rabbit. So you got green vegetable leaf accord, cinnamon, bergamot, apple. And then in the heart you got clove, flower accord, carrot, jasmine, and violet. And in the base you got patchouli, musk, hay, white almond, vanilla, and a biscuit accord. Now with Rabbit here, this was very bitter and vegetable when I sprayed it on. It smelled like vegetable oil at first, I'm not going to lie to you. Very green as well, earthy. And then it had like some weird kind of buttery flair to it. And I think that was a little gourmand-esque overall, but this was very bitter, very vegetable, oil-esque type of fragrance to me. It was green as well, earthy. I would say it reminded me of a rabbit in soil. It reminded me of a rabbit kind of digging up, a carrot possibly, and which makes sense. The name is Rabbit, of course. But this one was a scrubber for me. So it was a scrubber out of 10, 0 out of 10. I hated this fragrance. I did not like it. Like I mentioned, it was screechy, buttery, bitter, vegetable vibes with it. A little gourmand in the edges and then woody as well. But this and green. But on all of these, I just sprayed one time. And I kept trying to scrub it off, and it would not scrub off. That stain power is here. So the performance was very nice. This was about 3 to 4 feet throughout the whole fragrance almost. I was smelling this the whole time, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get this off my skin ASAP. But it's a shame, too, because I hear some people say it smells like carrot cake, and I was getting facets of that. But like I mentioned before, I was just getting bitter, screechy vegetable oil with this, which is a bummer. But, of course, you can't like every fragrance out there. So, but yeah, this is a 0 out of 10 for me. It is creative in the sense I haven't smelled anything like this before, and they took a different route on a gourmand, in my opinion. But this isn't, the main focus of this fragrance isn't gourmand. It is green, earthy, resinous a little bit too. I forgot to mention that, and vegetable oil overall, so veggies, and green too. So yeah, that is my review of a Rabbit here. 0 out of 10, but it has a place for somebody, of course. And I would say for Rabbit too, out of all the fragrances I have talked about so far, that would lean a little bit more feminine. Maybe it would be better on a woman's skin compared to my skin. but I just wasn't feeling it. So, alrighty, last but not least, we got Camel here. Camel. Where do I start with this one? So I'll show you all Camel here. So let's hop into some notes of Camel. In the top, dried fruits, frankincense. You got some dates, rose. In the heart, you got amber, cedar, cinnamon, jasmine, myrrh, orange blossom. And then in the base, you got civet, musk, oud, sandalwood, tonka bean, vanilla, and vetiver. Now, I will say with Camel here, this one worked excellently off my skin. Very strong Middle Eastern flair to it. Getting some sweetness from the dates and the dry fruit. And then also, too, in that opening, you do get a little rose. So I was getting a little bit of that rose-oud combo throughout the lifespan of this fragrance here. But I will say this is very similar to some other Middle Eastern style fragrances out there. But it did have some twists and some turns with some of the fragrance notes, like that dried fruit for prime example. And then also, too, that cinnamon and that orange blossom really made it kind of a different take on a Middle Eastern fragrance. And this reminded me of walking in a desert with a camel. Imagine that. I've never done that before, but just seeing pictures when you watch TV or online, I could see why this one is a camel, because they have some spiciness as well. I would say, for me, to my nose, some accords of this one: spicy, woody, fruity as well from the dates and the dried fruits, and then also too rose oud combo in this one. But very appealing. Projection for me, I would say about 3 feet. 3 feet, very solid throughout the first 4 or 5 hours. And I wore this on the same day as I wore a rhino, or rhinoceros, however you want to pronounce it. And they both projected really well. Like I mentioned, it probably didn't get to that 1 foot or 2 foot possibly in maybe the 10th or 11th hour I was wearing these fragrances, or those two fragrances during that day. Both of them had very great stain power. And this one, again, is kind of like Rhinoceros here. I might consider getting a full bottle of it. It is very enjoyable to my taste and how it was working off my skin. I wasn't getting very much of a barnyard oud with this as well. I would say out of the two ouds, the Rhinoceros, and the Camel has a less pungent oud. I would say Rhino has a little bit more oud kind of funk to it a little bit, but not much. They're both wearable in my opinion. Both wearable. But overall, I'd say the oud in this one's a little bit more wearable than Rhino. So I'm going to have to give Camel here about an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's a great release from the house, and I could see why people kind of hype this one up a little bit, talk about it. It is something that if you wanted a change of pace of that Middle Eastern style of fragrance, definitely check out Camel from the house. So that is my review over the first 5 samples that I got from the House of Zoologist. Really enjoyed my wearings of these, and I'm excited to get part 2 out to you all. But yeah, I'm still trying to pick and choose maybe which ones I want to get full bottles of, because I don't want to buy the ones I say, oh yeah, it's just full bottle worthy. I want to be very picky with these, but enjoyed my time with them for sure. Thank you for sticking this long throughout the video with me. Appreciate all your support. And with all that out of the way, I will see you all in the next video.